I didn't plan on diving into love energy today. It just pulled at me, soft at first, then undeniable. There was this feeling, almost like a confession hanging in the air. Not dramatic, not desperate, just honest. It felt like someone trying to convince themselves they're unaffected and failing. The message coming through isn't about a simple crush. It's about someone who prides themselves on being composed, someone who doesn't fall easily, who keeps their emotions measured and tidy. And yet, around you, that balance slips. You've unsettled someone. Not in a chaotic way, not in a toxic whirlwind way. More like you walked into their emotional space and quietly rearranged the furniture without even trying. They were steady, predictable, focused on their own lane. Then somehow, your name, your face, your energy, something about you started taking up more space in their thoughts than they're comfortable admitting. This person didn't expect you. For some of you, you've barely spoken. Maybe it was a short interaction. Maybe you crossed paths once and it lingered. Maybe they found you online, through a tag, a mutual connection, a random scroll that turned into curiosity. And that curiosity turned into attention. And that attention? It hasn't faded. They revisit you in subtle ways, checking, observing, wondering. What makes this powerful is that they're fighting it. Not because they don't like you, but because they do. The kind of attraction that feels steady is easy to ignore. But this feels alive. It makes them slightly nervous. It makes them overthink what they would say if they reached out. It makes them replay moments, even small ones, and search for meaning in them. You might not see it on the surface. They may act indifferent, calm, even detached. But beneath that exterior is someone very aware of how you make them feel. And here's the interesting part. They respect you. It's not just physical attraction, it's the way you carry yourself, the way you don't chase, the way you seem self-contained, like you're not waiting to be chosen. That independence, it draws them in even more. Let's start with the first image that comes to mind. A wheel. This isn't random energy. It's like a moment spinning back, ready for impact. Someone is standing on the edge of a decision. They've been toying with the idea of contacting you. Not just for nothing, not without thought. They've thought about it as many times as they can, but they'll never agree. For them, contacting you feels like a gamble, like stepping into the unknown and hoping luck will finally meet them halfway. Because the first time they saw you, something clicked. It wasn't just attraction. It was recognition. The kind that makes a person stop thinking mid-sentence, mid-scroll. You caught their attention in a way that disrupted their rhythm, and the reaction was instant. An inner, "What was that?" moment. A spark that didn't ask for permission before igniting. They didn't expect this to have such an impact on them. This person may appear calm, strategic in other aspects of life as well. They calculate, they observe, they like certainty. But you're not a calculation they've solved. You're a variable that keeps coming up again and again. And the truth is, they're surprised by the intensity of their own reaction. Nervousness, curiosity, mild anxiety. It almost feels inconvenient to them. They may have told themselves they're too grounded, too mature, too focused to be distracted by chemistry. Yet your presence, whether physical or virtual, repeatedly proves otherwise. They wonder what will happen if they try to talk. They imagine the conversation. They rehearse it. They delete it before it's even typed. There's hesitation, not because they don't want you, but because they do. It seems like timing plays a role here. Either circumstances weren't aligned before, or they weren't ready. But now, something is shifting inside. The wheels are turning. The fear of not knowing is beginning to outweigh the fear of rejection. You may not even realize the impact you've had. For some of you, it was a glance across the room. For others, a brief conversation. For some, it's been entirely digital, an image, a voice, a shared connection. However it happened, it resonated deeply. So who is it? If you felt someone hovering around you, someone whose energy seems incomplete, as if a sentence is waiting for punctuation, you're not imagining it. The moon rises in this story like a quiet confession. Not the bright, performative kind of revelation, but the kind that happens at night, when everything is still and there's no one left to impress. The moon carries feminine energy here, intuitive, magnetic, impossible to ignore. And paired with the turning wheel we spoke about before, it feels like timing and emotion are colliding. There's something about this particular lunar peak, an emotional high tide, that's stirring realization in someone who has been trying very hard to stay neutral. You may hear people joke, "The moon made me do it." But in this case, it's more like the moon made them admit it. Because what's happening isn't new feelings. It's clarity about feelings that were already there. This person has been attempting to rationalize their reaction to you. They've told themselves it's just curiosity, just physical attraction, just coincidence. But under this heightened emotional energy, denial is getting harder to maintain. They're having a moment of internal honesty. Why does this person stay on my mind? Why does someone I barely know feel so present in my thoughts? And for many of you, that's exactly the situation. You barely know each other. This may be someone who exists on the edges of your world. The coworker down the hall who keeps interactions professional, but notices more than they let on. The familiar face at your regular cafe who times their visits a little too perfectly. The person who views your stories but never comments. The friend of a friend who asks about you more often than necessary. There hasn't been a formal introduction, no deep conversations, no clear invitation. And yet, there's a pull. The moon governs tides, and this feels like that same invisible force. You're not chasing, you're not performing, you're simply existing in your own rhythm. But your energy is creating movement in someone else's emotional waters. They don't understand it. That's the part that unsettles them. Let's look deeper. When I ask who this person is, the one stirred by emotion, nudged by timing, unsettled by the moon's pull, the energy shifts into something more mental, more internal. This is someone who lives in their head. The image that forms is of a person paused mid-flight, capable, perceptive, intelligent, but tangled in their own thoughts. They overanalyze, they replay, they imagine outcomes before anything has even happened. If they lean toward an air-dominant personality, that would make sense. Communicative, observant, thoughtful, but also prone to getting caught in mental loops. They didn't mean to get swept up. At first, they brushed it off as simple attraction, a passing spark, a moment of appreciation. They're attractive. They seem interesting. I like their presence. Harmless thoughts, easy to contain, but the feeling didn't dissolve. Instead, it expanded. Now they find themselves mentally circling you. wondering what you're like beyond what's visible, wondering if the energy they sense is mutual, wondering if reaching out would feel natural or foolish. There's something creative about this person. I get the sense of music, string instruments in particular. Not necessarily that they're on a stage somewhere, but there's a softness to them, a reflective quality. The kind of person who processes emotions privately before expressing them outwardly. They may play an instrument, or they may simply resonate with music deeply, using it as a way to understand feelings they can't articulate. Now, I would like to request that if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do so quickly. This will give us a lot of support, and I'll be able to connect with your energy more easily. And if you're enjoying the reading, please share your feedback in the comments with a heart emoji. I will definitely read your comments. Right now, though, they feel mentally restrained, not by circumstance, but by hesitation. It's as if their own thoughts have built a cage around their courage. What if I'm misreading this? What if I'm projecting? What if this is just infatuation? They question themselves more than they question you. And yet, something is shifting. The doubt that once kept them still is loosening. The emotional clarity brought on by this lunar influence is dissolving the idea that this is just a crush. They're beginning to recognize that what they feel isn't shallow. It's not impulsive. It has weight. They admire how you carry yourself, whether through social media, your work, your voice, or simply the way others describe you. Your presence feels intentional. You seem self-aware, grounded, authentic. That authenticity is what caught them first. They like how you present yourself to the world, not in a performative way, but in a way that feels aligned. They notice your tone, your consistency, the subtle confidence in how you communicate. Even the way others respond to you stands out to them. The energy now feels gentle but determined, like someone who has moved past confusion and arrived at a quiet decision. This isn't restless curiosity anymore. It feels like intention forming. There's a sweetness around it, almost old-fashioned in its sincerity. The image that comes to mind is someone holding on to their feelings longer than they planned to, hoping they would settle down on their own, only to realize they haven't. This person wants to ask you out, not in a dramatic, over-the-top way, but in a simple and genuine way. The kind of invitation that says, I'd like to know you for real. What stands out is that this urge feels sudden to them, even though the feelings have been building for some time. It's as if they've reached a point where keeping it inside feels more uncomfortable than taking the risk. There is also a strong sense of timing around this. They are becoming aware that opportunities don't wait forever. Life moves. People meet other people. Circumstances shift. They may have told themselves they had plenty of time to figure it out, but now something inside them is saying that waiting could mean missing their chance. That realization is what's pushing them toward action. They are thinking carefully about how to approach you. They want to make the right decision. They don't want to appear impulsive or strange, especially if you haven't had much direct interaction. For some of you, this is someone who knows of you more than they know you personally. They may have seen your presence online, heard about you from others, or observed you quietly in shared spaces. At first, they questioned whether it made sense to feel so drawn to someone they haven't fully connected with. But the fact that the feeling hasn't faded has become its own answer. The doubts they once had are beginning to lose their grip. What once felt like uncertainty now feels like anticipation. They are starting to accept that their reaction to you wasn't random and wasn't temporary. It left an imprint. Even now, they still remember the first moment they noticed you and how unexpectedly strong it felt. Beneath the surface of everything sits Temperance, and its presence changes the entire atmosphere of this connection. This is not impulsive desire or a fleeting crush. This is someone who has practiced restraint, someone who has deliberately slowed themselves down to understand what they're feeling before acting on it. There is patience here, but not indifference. Control, but not coldness. This person may carry Sagittarius energy or strong water influence such as Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces. But more than zodiac traits, what defines them is emotional intelligence. They read people well. They are rarely wrong about character. When they sense inconsistency, they retreat. When they sense depth, they pay attention. And with you, they paid attention. What unsettles them is that their attraction didn't stay surface level. Yes, they noticed your appearance. Yes, they felt that immediate spark. But what held them was something subtler. The way you present yourself, the steadiness in your energy, the way you seem self-possessed without needing validation. For someone who judges character carefully, this is not a small detail. It's everything. With judgment influencing their mindset, this feels like an inner awakening. They've questioned themselves about you, tested their feelings, asked whether this is projection, curiosity, or something real. And every time, they arrive at the same conclusion. This connection deserves to be explored. They have admired you from a distance longer than you realize. There may be a gap between you socially or situationally. Perhaps you know of them, but don't imagine they notice you. Or perhaps they know more about you than you suspect. Either way, there has been space. And in that space, feelings have quietly grown. When Three of Swords appears alongside Ace of Pentacles, it tells a compelling story. The Three of Swords here is not heartbreak. It is exposure. It is the uncomfortable realization that suppressing emotion is more painful than expressing it. They are tired of carrying this internally, tired of pretending it doesn't matter. Their heart feels involved now, and that changes everything. The Ace of Pentacles signals something tangible, a real offer, a concrete step. Not fantasy, not daydreaming, but an actual message, invitation, or opportunity to begin something grounded. This won't be reckless. It will feel deliberate, almost ceremonial in its intention. Timing feels closer than it has before. There is a building momentum, like someone who has rehearsed the decision internally and is now waiting for the right opening. For some, this may unfold within weeks. For others, it may align slightly later. But the shift has already happened. The hesitation is thinning. So okay, now I will end the video here. See you soon with another new video. Till then, thanks.